Thank you, Director Rowe. I'm now going to recognize myself for 5 minutes. First, I want to thank you for your testimony. Of all the areas the Secret Service reviewed after July 13th, what do you think was the most concerning failure of that day, looking back on it? And had you been the one developing the game plan, what different moves would you have made strategically to ensure that it was a safe and secure area?
So I think what is glaring to me is the failure to recognize the significance of the AGR building, to recognize the significance of proximity to what was perceived to be the middle perimeter of the site. The lack of recognizing that, the failure to effectively communicate, as you stated, and some of the findings of the task force, to effectively communicate to local law enforcement that we need to have uniformed presence out here, that we shouldn't have people that close, unscreened, on the curtilage of our site, not having better line of sight mitigation, having something scrim along that fence line that was to the 3 o'clock, having uniformed law enforcement presence out there, having special attention measures by those law enforcement officers. That, to me, is glaring. And those are basic tenets, fundamentals of what advance teams are supposed to identify. They are supposed to identify hazards, risks, and then mitigate those risks effectively, either by using law enforcement and coordinating assets, or taking matters and making sure that it is mitigated and that risk is taken out of play. We did not do that on the 13th. Post-July 13th, there was a renewed focus on that, making sure that supervisors were engaged, that we provided assets, that we had enabling UAS, platforms in the air. That was the difference on October 5th that you saw with your own eyes, sir.
You know, first of all, I want to thank you for your testimony. You know, of all the people that have weighed in on this, myself, my wife, 3 of my grandchildren, and 1 of my sons were there. I was on the grounds both on July 13th and October 5th. I want to reiterate what I said earlier. The difference is the difference between day and night. And my concern was, from the day the site was selected to when it was turned over to Secret Service, somehow that exchange, for whatever reason, the ability to coordinate the efforts between local law enforcement and federal agencies just seemed to be casual. I don't think local law enforcement knew enough about what was expected of them. I think that day they were doing what they thought they were supposed to do, and then afterwards it's like, well, we should have communicated better. And I've got to tell you, from the beginning, I always was trying to figure out why 2 different command centers, and why weren't the 2 command centers even able to communicate with each other? Because at the end of the day, it's about communication. And as I've already said, we shouldn't have waited till 11 minutes after 6 that day to determine that we couldn't communicate. So going forward, you've already made some changes, and I think when you look at October the 5th, and to me, when I walked on the grounds that day, I felt like I was in the safest place in the world. The awareness of that, when you look back at it, and you were not in charge at that time on July 13th, but afterwards, the attention to detail that you put into effect on October the 5th, if you can share with us what we should do going forward, is there a protocol? Is there an ability to communicate? Is there an ability then to draw not only the federal agencies in, but also local agencies, because you can't cover the whole thing by yourselves. You just don't have enough personnel, you don't have enough assets. Going forward, I know you've already initiated plans like that. Just share a few of those with us, please.
Sure, so we've actually now we have done some organizational changes as well. I've created an aviation unit, right? So that's making sure that we're putting out those drones up in the sky to give us visibility. If we don't have a drone, or if for whatever reason a state or local wants to fly a drone, we're going to allow them to fly that drone as well. The whole point is to get, and this is what we did not have on July 13th, and it's one common operating picture. On October the 5th, we knew exactly where every law enforcement officer was because they were using a Blue Force tracker. We have that same platform. So having that domain awareness now, moving forward at our protected sites, that is a change that we are operationalizing. We did this as part of our paradigm shift. We have to look at the threat and what that threat is. And our security model is based on that threat. And we have to prepare every day that there is somebody out there who's there to do harm. And that means that we have to communicate that to our state and local officers, and they are just as much of a partner at the table when we are developing that plan.
Okay, thank you. Listen, we could go on for a long time back and forth of what was there. I just will reiterate it. There is only one person on this panel in this room, unless other people came down from Butler, that was there that day. I was there that day. It was really messed up. I couldn't understand at all what was going on because it was unlike any other rally that I'd ever attended. I do know that you have so many protectees that are out there. The size and scope of your responsibility is beyond what the average American would understand. And I think by having these hearings, people are going to understand what is the purpose of the investment, why do we do it, and who all is it we're trying to protect. At this time, I'm going to turn over to Mr. Crowe. It's been wonderful working with him, and his military background exceeds anything I ever knew. So